Hey all, Eurogamers, Ian Higton here. Now, it's pretty safe to say that I absolutely loved playing Stray, and I'm not just saying that because I spent most of the game's runtime tripping over companion bots. When I wasn't doing that, however, I was also keeping my cat's eyes peeled for Easter eggs. And what do you know? I only went and stumbled across 25 of the things. So sit back, put a cat on your lap, and enjoy this rundown of 25 Stray Easter eggs. One of the first things you'll see when you enter the Dead City at the start of Stray is a trio of wheelie bins with the word Neko written on them. As you'll find out later on, in the world of Stray, Neko was a shady waste recycling and repurposing corporation, but in our world, Neko, spelled with a K rather than a C, is actually the Japanese word for cat. So that means in this game about a cat, you're basically wandering around looking at the word cat for most of the runtime, which is pretty much the most in-your-face Easter egg you could possibly get, whilst also being quite fitting for a creature as self-centred and narcissistic as a Moggy. In Stray, your main companion is this little drone named B12, which, if you haven't guessed already, is named after the game's development studio Blue 12. See, its logo even says B12, so you can't get more blatant than that. But what you might not know is that this is actually a double Easter egg, because B12 is also the name of a vitamin that is crucial for the health of a cat. Just like how B12 is essential to the cat's survival in Stray, real-life cats need vitamin B12 in order to maintain the health of things like their immune system, nervous system, and their digestive tract. So whether your cat is navigating a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk city or just the hedge at the bottom of your garden, it's important to make sure that they always have a healthy dose of B12 to help them along the way. On the subject of Blue 12, did you know that this video game studio is actually based in France? Please don't chat yourself when I tell you that there are several clues pointing towards this fact dotted around the game world. Most of these clues take the form of posters which are written in French, but the most blatant reference of all can be found adorning many of the cardboard boxes that litter the streets and buildings of the walled city. These boxes may be labelled as containing men's socks, but make no mistake about it, this game was indeed made in France. Did you know that Stray was first announced almost 7 years ago? That sounds like a pretty long time to me, but that's actually about 49 years ago in cat years, so we humans had it pretty lucky with the wait, all things considered. The initial design concept for the game was teased on the 7th of October 2015, when this image was uploaded to the Stray dev blog. At the time, Stray went by the codename HK, and it was described as a cat adventure game, and as you can see, the style of the finished game stayed pretty true to that of this conceptual image. The Stray dev blog isn't the only place you can find this legendary picture though, because you'll also be able to spot a posterized version of it pinned to the notice board by the side of the bed as soon as you enter the flat where you first meet B12. Now, you can sit on the bed here and zoom in and admire this image for as long as you want, but if you'd actually like to make some progress in the game, you can get your own copy of this poster by ordering the exclusive physical edition of the game from iam8bit.com. That's not an advert, by the way, I thought it was interesting to point out. Anyway, that way you can mark your territory with it in your own home, and you and the cat can continue your adventures in the walled city with no distractions. Not all of the Blue 12 Easter eggs are as blatant as that last one though. This next one contains a hidden message from the developer that takes a little bit of work to decipher. It can be found on the rooftops of the slums, right here where you find the TV set and sofa setup in front of the entrance to the library. By jumping up onto the sofa, you can get the cat to change the channels on this TV by clicking on the remote control. There are quite a few channels to surf through though, but the one we're looking for specifically looks a bit like a shopping TV channel. You'll know you've got the right one as it'll have a QR code in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Now, due to the fuzziness and graininess of the image, it can be a bit tricky to scan this QR code, but if you manage to do it correctly, you'll be given a string of binary code in return. These noughts and ones mean nothing on their own, but if you enter them into a binary code translator, you'll be presented with the message, "Hello you," followed by a simplistic cat face emoji. Oh, cute. But that's enough about cryptic messages and hidden images, because in Stray you can actually meet the Blue 12 development team themselves, or the companion versions of the team at least. For instance, in the club in Midtown you can meet and dance with Cooler and Viv, who created and directed Stray. Viv here is wearing the awesome dragon mask, while Cooler is the companion in the orange puffer jacket that is getting their groove on next to them. Also making an appearance in Midtown are these three music-loving mechanoids, Miko, Simon and Jinma, who you can find hanging out on the ground floor of the residential area. As you can see, these three characters are actually named after the game's animators, so it makes sense that they're some of the most animated companions in Stray. But that's not all. You can also meet Baladin, one of the game's QA testers, who will welcome you at the entrance to Ant Village, and Altair Satur here, who you can find lying on the floor of the jail, is actually named after the website for Hugo Dunas Vold, the technical game designer for Stray. Okay, with all of the Blue 12 Easter eggs out of the way, it's time to check out what pop culture secrets are hidden within the walled city. Let's kick things off with all the video game references that I found first, starting with this blatant nod to the Half-Life series. If you've played the Half-Life games before, you'll know that both of Gordon Freeman's adventures start on board a train, and if you make your way inside the subway train in Midtown, you'll find a crowbar on top of one of the seats in the first carriage. Gordon's signature weapon in Half-Life is of course the crowbar, so what better place to keep one than on board another train? And if anything, it should make a pretty good tool for dispatching the headcrab-like Zerks. Whilst cats are generally awesome beings, they also have the potential to be absolute assholes if the mood takes them. But they're not the biggest assholes in the animal kingdom. That award, of course, goes to geese, and those feathery fools seem to have been inspiring the cats of Stray with their anusy antics. In this section of Midtown, you need to wake up a drunken companion in order for it to resume its job of carrying boxes into the hat store. Once you've done that, you can hide inside one of these boxes and wait for the droid to carry you past the cranky store owner and into the shop. Which is exactly how the goose in Untitled Goose Game gains access to the village pub. Not only is this method of infiltration lifted straight from the Goose Game playbook, but to make this connection even more solid, a little goosey musical sting also plays as soon as you steal the hat. Fans of the Persona series should easily recognise the name of this sullen companion robot. He can be found in an alleyway off of the main area in Midtown, and if you talk to him, you'll find out that his name is Sojiro. Sojiro is a character from Persona 5 who owns a bar called Café LeBlanc, so when you see Roboto Sojiro sadly reminiscing about his old bar, it becomes pretty clear that this is indeed a Persona 5 Easter egg. But wait, we're not done with Sojiro just yet, because his sad story holds yet another video game Easter egg. Advance his dialogue to the second page and you'll see him say that his bar closed down because he took a screwdriver to the knee, a reference to the legendary arrow to the knee line from Skyrim.
I used to be an adventurer like you. and I took an arrow in the knee.
And that's not the only Skyrim reference to be found in Stray either. Head down to floor level in Ant Village and make your way over the manky water to where these two robots are digging for junk. Speak to the blue robot named Jenkins and he'll say, "Some may call this junk. Me, I call them treasures," which is a famous phrase said by the merchant Bellathor in Whiterun.
Some may call this junk. Me, I call them treasures.
The last example of a companion repeating a famous line from a video game can be found in Midtown, in the first open doorway you pass when you enter the main area. Sitting on a sofa underneath some lovely posters of cows is Vladi, who is philosophizing about replacing parts of his body. Will he be the same robot if he replaces and upgrades all of his parts, he wonders. The dialogue Vladi uses is very similar to that used in a scene from Nier Automata, where a supply trader talks about repairing his leg and whether he'll even be himself anymore after replacing it. This type of thought experiment actually dates back to around 500 BC, when ancient philosophers were discussing the ship of Theseus, but the best example of it being used in modern times is definitely Trigger's broom from Only Fools and Horses.
This old broom has had 17 new heads and 14 new handles in its time.
How the hell can it be the same bloody broom then?
Well, here's a picture of it. What more proof do you need?
This head scratcher isn't the only Nier reference in the game though, as the vertically built ant village in Stray is also heavily inspired by Pascal's tree-based machine village in Automata.
My name is Pascal. I'm the leader of this village.
Alrighty, games are done, now on to books, movies and TV shows, starting with this blink and you'll miss it reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Lying in the centre of the library in the slums is this rusting robot who died with a book in its hands. When you ask B12 to translate the book for you, it reads, "How to develop your artificial intelligence in order to be as creative as a real human," volume 42. And as any fan of Douglas Adams' books will know, 42 is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. So if you're a robot wanting to expand your creative horizons and breathe more life into your artificial intelligence, Volume 42 should hold the answers. But wait, the library isn't finished with its book-shaped Easter eggs yet, because placed high up on that there shelf there is a very fancy journal that will look very familiar to fans of the animated show Gravity Falls. The front cover of this book is almost identical in design to the 3 cryptic journals from Gravity Falls, right down to the golden corners and the ridges down the spine. The only real difference, of course, is that instead of having a handprint and a number on the front, this book is of course embossed with a golden paw print and a strange symbol. That symbol, by the way, is actually the letter D in the companion's unique alphabet, which suggests that this book maybe once belonged to the character Doc. And that leads me to one of the most blatant Easter eggs in the game. Doc here is of course based on Dr. Emmett Brown from Back to the Future. If the crazy hair didn't give it away instantly, the defluxer and the 1.21 gigawatts chat definitely seals the deal. But what you may not have picked up on, unless you're a massive fan of the entire Back to the Future trilogy, is that the Doc's son Seamus is actually based on Marty McFly. You see, Seamus here is not only wearing an orange jacket that is like the one that Marty wears in the first film, but his shiny hat is quite obviously based on the one that Marty wears in the future in Back to the Future 2. And then of course there's the name, Seamus. Not only is that the name of Marty's great-great-grandfather who helps him out when he first travels back to the Old West in Back to the Future 3, but it's also the middle name of Marty McFly himself.
Great Scott.
Unless you're a big fan of the TV show Mr. Robot, you may have missed out on the fact that this cold companion is actually named after that show's lead character, Elliot Alderson. That's about as deep as this Easter egg goes, to be honest with you, but Elliot really is the perfect name for this robotic hacktivist. At first I thought that calling these flashing lights a reference to the show Stranger Things was a bit of a stretch, but as you'll see with this and the next couple of Easter eggs, it seems like the developers of Stray may well be fans of the show. These strings of light appear near the start of the game and they lead you towards the apartment where you first meet B12. These light bulbs act in a similar way to the Christmas lights in Stranger Things Season 1, by which I mean they're used by someone else. In the show that's Will, and in the game it's B12, to send a message to someone else who is far away. So in the show that's Joyce, and of course in the game it's the cat. This next Easter egg is also a bit of a stretch, as it could potentially be referencing two things, or I guess no things, but that would make a rubbish Easter egg video, so I'm going all in. Anyway, this red neon sign that's found on the bar in the slums says Dufer Bar, which, depending on your viewpoint, could mean one of a couple of things. If it's another Stranger Things reference, the name Dufer could be a reference to the show's directors, the Dufer brothers. This would definitely help solidify the string of lights theory, but I've also seen other people suggest that the Dufer Bar sign could actually be a nod to Moe's Bar from The Simpsons, which famously sells Duff beer.
Oh my God, it's worse than I thought.
But maybe this interaction from inside the residential area in Midtown will convince you that these last few Easter eggs have been Stranger Things themed after all. Because if you chat to Lynn and Pinu here, you'll find out that they're about to take part in the Hellfire Club's favourite activity, a game of Dungeons and Dragons. I wonder what their club would be called though. The Roblox Venturers maybe? Sticking with movies and Midtown, if you head down this side alleyway found near the start of Midtown, you'll soon come across this traffic cone sporting robot named Albert, who is indulging in a bit of sweeping. Talk to Albert and he'll mention that he's missing his friend Fifi, who lives on the lower levels. This is a reference to Osamu Tezuka's 1949 manga Metropolis, which features a side character called Fifi, who is an Albert II cleaner class robot. If that wasn't sci-fi enough for you though, why not pay a visit to this snoozing companion in Ant Village who talks in his sleep? Interact with him and he'll mumble something about electric zerks, which is of course a reference to Phillip K Dick's novel and inspiration for the movie Blade Runner, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? This robot's name is Isaac, by the way, which could potentially be a reference to another famous science fiction author, Isaac Asimov, whose legendary 3 Laws of Robotics featured in his short story Runaround. From sci-fi to crime bosses now, as we head on over to the jail where, after performing a daring escape and entering this courtyard, you can meet 3 companion robots with some very familiar names. First up, there's Pablo here, who is most likely a reference to everyone's favourite narco, Pablo Escobar. Capone is up next, and there's no prizes for guessing that this robot is obviously named after the famous American gangster Al Capone. This chap is called Lupin, who I think is referencing Maurice Leblanc's fictional French thief Arsène Lupin. But it could also be a reference to Lupin III, the grandson of Lupin and the star of the manga series written and illustrated by Monkey Punch. This next Easter egg is about another monster, but this time not in the criminal sense. We met dancing robot Neko from the residential area earlier, and when we did, some of you may have spotted the unique design to their head, which consists of 2 loudspeakers. This should send shivers down the spines of any creepypasta fans out there, because this design looks very similar to the terrifying Siren Head monster that went viral about 4 years ago. This character design is also shared by a robot on one of the TV channels you can watch in the slums, although instead of dancing, this one is hosting a game show. We're on to the final section of this Easter egg video now, so let's get lucky one more time with a trip to the club in Midtown, where the house DJs are robot rocking the dance floor with some harder, better, faster, stronger music. This duo is clearly based on Daft Punk, who are originally from France, which, as we've already established, is where Stray was developed, so it makes sense to pay tribute to them rather than searching around the world for another artist to ape. This next Easter egg can be found by talking to the guitar-holding strumbot Murusk in the slums, and it's actually a double Easter egg because not only is it a reference in this game, but it's also one of the only musical memes in the world that musicians put into their music for other musicians to find. It's a little musical Easter egg. Ask Murusk to play the Ballad of the Lonely Robot, and right at the end you'll hear something called The Lick. And The Lick, as you'll hear in the following clips, is a musical phrase that has been used in many a jazzy composition throughout the years. And to play us out with one final Easter egg, we're back with Murusk, who's going to play us a song called Cool Down, which is of course heavily inspired by Japanese composer Nujabes' classic song Counting Stars. Thanks for watching this video all. If you enjoyed it, do give it a like, subscribe to Eurogamer, and check out some of these other videos that are on screen right now if you want to continue your journey through the world of video game Easter eggs with your boy Ian. Goodbye!